I wanted to get Soft White Underbelly. Maybe Justin, you can reach out to them. Soft White Underbelly does interviews with a lot of people on Skid Row.
Mm-hmm.
And
can you tell people what Skid Row is?
Skid Row is an area in LA that has got a lot of homeless encampments and a lot of drug use and a lot of prostitution and a lot of, whatever. In Vancouver, Hastings Street, there's these areas of cities that are become, sometimes because there's public services nearby, sometimes because it's a legal area for people to encamp, become the center of the homeless world.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just interesting in watching that as people tell their stories. They're often unaware, but when they describe their childhoods, they'll say something like, one guy goes, I had a really happy childhood. And then at 13, I had to leave because my dad was getting a little bit too violent with my mom. So it's just like, you left at 13 after a really happy childhood where your dad kind of crossed the line at that age with your mom. And then that guy grows up and he is a pimp, essentially. He runs brothels and mistreats women. And the generational trauma that you'll hear, and it's such a crazy echo. There's one dude, did I mention it? I think I mentioned it, but who... He doesn't say so at the beginning of the interview, and you find it over the course of the interview. He's a Harvard grad who is crack addicted. Like he got crack addicted at, I think, his first college, and then messed up his life, but then was able to get out enough to go to Harvard because he's a smart guy. Went to Harvard, did some crack, screwed him some of the time, but when he was in class, he got A's, he said, at Harvard. And through the whole time has been struggling with crack and the connection that in his mind crack has with prostitution. And so for him, what he would do is do crack, get a prostitute, and have her do oral sex on him, even though he wasn't erect. And that could go on for a long time. And that was like this hook for him. And you're sitting there watching that, be like, oh, that's I've never heard that before. Like, why? Mm-hmm. And he just mentions 25 minutes in, have you ever been abused? He goes, not really. Like, I guess like when I was 4, like these 12-year-old girls did kind of, do some stuff to me. And you go, oh, like a 4-year-old boy that was touched and didn't get erect by a woman, and wonder if you're like playing that thing out over and over again. So it's in almost every interview, the people are unaware of how the trauma in their life so uncannily is echoing throughout.
Yeah, well, I've seen it in our podcast comments. Some people don't believe in the link between your childhood and who you are as an adult.
Yeah. I didn't.
Some people just think that the traumas of your life do not stay with you. And
the reason is because they think about them like I did with my shit. And I would go, I'm aware of it. I don't think of it every day. Like you'd have to remind me, and it's not bothering me. And that's because they think that the person they are is the thoughts that they're aware of and not the unconscious, literally unconscious, you're not aware of them drives that only come up in really, really safe environments like therapy or when psychedelics are.
So you might have a self-sabotaging behavior. You might do things like find significant others that are bad for your life or sabotage yourself at work or whatever it might be, and just think that's part of you and not realize that is a hangover of your trauma because it doesn't, while you're doing your gambling addiction or dating your shitty significant other, you're not thinking of what happened to you when you were 8. It's just subconsciously driving you to the exact self-destructive or self-sabotaging behavior. But some people disagree with that. I think it's almost obvious when you dig into it, but I wouldn't have known it 10 years ago.
Well, the thing is, what it is that is dangerous because it's not purely scientific in this way is like, we're kind of starting with the result of like, oh, you're crack addicted. And then we look back and of course you're going to find something if that's how you do science. If you look at a result and then try to find a cause, you can come up with any number of stories. What is truly hard to do with trauma is to say, you had this trauma, you were raped, molested, whatever. How is it going to manifest itself? Because the truth is the final outcome can be a number of different ways. You can get people who are so stuck on the trauma, but it has a more positive expression in their life. They become criminal prosecution and they're obsessed with it. And it's like, you know what? That's not so bad. Like,
no, what I'm saying is that almost every person that I know, which is obviously anecdotal, but it's, I'm thinking of dozens of people who I've had conversations with. The thing that they are trying to figure out or that's holding them back that they see sometimes or they don't see sometimes, it often links to being something in their childhood. So it's like when they seem really smart but can't get business to work, can't get the promotion, can't start the business they keep talking about, or when they are a really great person who keeps picking shitty significant others. Whatever thing is recurring, if it's something that happens more than once, like it's not just one area that they fail in one time, but they repeatedly have this failure, often, if you get to know them and you talk to them, you can see how it is something from their childhood. And once they can figure out that it's something from their childhood, that seems to be almost the only way that they break the cycle. That's what I'm saying. And so when you become aware of it through therapy or psychedelics or whatever, that's the time that you can suddenly improve it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you had monetary limiting beliefs from your childhood. It's not even from trauma. It was just a subconscious limiting belief you didn't know existed.
Well, that's maybe you're saying that there's a better way to express this. Like instead of saying trauma, let's just say like you learn a lot when you're a kid, and then you forget where you learned it, and you forget that it was drawn in very black and white,
and you forget that it's optional to believe it.
Exactly.
That's the bigger thing. So you don't even know that you're holding a belief. You just think that's how the world works.
Exactly.
And then when you realize it's a belief, you legitimately start earning 10 times more money once you recognize that you had a limiting belief from your childhood.
That one wasn't, and they're not all that easy. I think this is perhaps the difference between a trauma experience and a belief that you picked up in childhood.
Yeah, I agree.
So what I had was a belief that said, and it was partially childhood from just hearing, money's not going to make you happy. And then as I grew up, I read, if you make more than $70,000 a year, happiness tapers off. And then I moved to New York and I saw a bunch of iBankers that I considered very wealthy and not people whose emotional life I aspired to have. And so
but I also think it's from your child. I think if you had a dad or a grandpa or someone you admired who was a young, incredibly self-made multimillionaire, that no study would convince you that money was going to hurt you.
No, I was very convinced that from my family as well, that like money certainly wasn't worth really making your number one priority. Like, and that's not a bad thing for I think. And if I have kids,
yes, but then it got interpreted to be,
don't make more than this much.
If you make more than this amount, you will something bad.
Exactly. But where there wasn't trauma, where there could have been, is no one when I was young, I was like, oh, you see that rich guy? He's a bad person. Because if that had happened, I think I would have had much more difficulty overcoming it. When I recognized the belief, I just went, oh, I'll let go of that one. And that one changed immediately. There's been other beliefs in my life where I go, oh, maybe I shouldn't, for instance, spend so much time on dating. Like, maybe because this is kind of why Charisma on Command exists, is I cared so much about this. But the time in, return out is like, okay, these relationships, which are in retrospect valuable, but I was surrounded by my best friends. Like the relationships that as I look back that were the most valuable have been my friends, which came easier, had more positive emotions, and which I spent less effort in creating, cultivating, maintaining. They were just lucky enough to happen. And so I've tried to get my brain to go, oh, folk, like that's the thing. Like call your buddy. Like remember, call that guy.
When you have the urge to open up a dating app, open up your phone instead and call a friend. Where
there must be trauma is my brain is so slow to learn that. And it's not like I'm destroying my friendships, but I'm certainly not the, me, I don't respond to texts or make phone calls. I pick up the phone sometimes, but and that's where I go, okay, something happened in my life where that got locked in, and it's not as simple as becoming aware of it for me to let go of it.
Sure.
And so I guess that's where the psychedelics come in. I have a bunch of random stuff. I don't know if you want to. So yeah, we're going to be all over the place today because it's been a bit of time since you were here. Hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.